guys, and welcome to the very first video in the series. The first element we're going to be covering is colour. I'm going to go over the very basics before we go into any sort of palette making. So first we're going to look at the different groups of colours. The main colours you'll see that people talk a lot about are the primary colours, which are the basic colours. These are red, blue and yellow. If you mix these colours, you get the kind of colours in between. These are the secondary colours, which are orange, purple and green. You can make a colour wheel by mixing these colours to make the colours in between. The first colour group that's quite important is harmonious colours, which are basically any colours that are next to each other on the colour wheel. So you can see here that I've split the colour wheel in half. You don't have to do that, but that's just how I decided to show it. And I've kind of drawn out the colours next to each other so you can see how they kind of blend in well together, they go well together, and then next to it I've put them into a gradient to show how well they kind of flow into each other, which is basically what a harmonious colour is supposed to do. You might not choose to use so many colours in your harmonious colour palette, but that's fine because I mean it works with just 2 colours or 3 colours. The next group are complementary colours, which are basically any colours opposite each other on the colour wheel. So as you can see here, you've got red and green, orange and blue, yellow and purple. They don't really go well together, they kind of clash, which is really good for making something stand out. Like if you had a red background and then like a green elf on top of it, the elf would really stand out because they're complementary colours, so you can hurt your eyes quite a bit, but they're just there to kind of help with contrast, and we'll talk more about the complementary colours when we look at contrast. I just want to try and explain very briefly how I create colour palettes for my work. This is a piece that I've been working on recently. It's a picture of our dear friend Bonnie from Five Nights at Freddy's. I've kind of made him a human-like character. He's not completely human because he still has the little rabbit nose, and I've kind of made his jaw, his mouth line extend like Bonnie's does in the game. But he's more human than he is in the game, and he actually has like hair and a human kind of face. But I didn't do the rest of his body, just decided to do his head. And I've finished the sketches, and this is the kind of value stage I've been marking out where all the tones are. So I thought it'd be good if we worked on him together so I can show you how I apply colour to my works, and you'll hopefully be able to see the final product when it's finished. Here's his sketch layer and line art on just in one layer. The red is the sketch, and you can't really see it very well, but there's black on top, which is the line art. You can kind of see better now that he's kind of a bit of an anime style, a bit of cartoony style, but the colouring that I'm deciding to do isn't very cartoony or anime, so it's a mixture of lots of different styles. It's slightly easier for me as this is a fan art. I already have a colour palette to follow as such. The colours generally, but I don't know what other kind of shades or tones I should be using. So I went for the very classic Bonnie colours. I went for purple for his hair and his ears, red for the bow tie around his neck, and then the kind of fleshy tone for his skin, as they're pretty much the main colours I'll be using throughout this piece. I quickly went in and filled these in underneath the line art as like the base colours. I already knew when I put these on that these would be too bright and too saturated, but it just generally gives me an idea of what I need to do to the colours to make them better or fit better, especially as I'm going for a kind of feel to the piece or like a kind of theme, because it's supposed to be quite a horror or spooky piece, so these bright colours really don't go. After that, I went in and decided what colour the lighting would be. I realised that when you're playing the game and you're sat in the office, the lighting is quite warm, it's quite kind of yellowy because it's all artificial light, but if you look on the cameras, the lighting outside of the office is quite bluey tinted, so I like to decide what colour the lighting is going to be so that I can base the rest of the colours that I use off that kind of lighting choice. So I decided to go with the kind of blue, nighttime, kind of, you know, few lights on, not many like artificial lights which will make it kind of look yellow, but more natural lighting like the moonlight. From this, I'm now able to kind of get the gist of what colours I used. I used that kind of blue tint to make the colours that I originally chose more blue tinted. Like you can see that the purple's more of a bluey purple now, the red is more of a pink, and also the flesh tone is more of a light pink. So this is kind of what the colours would look like if that blue hue was over the top of them. I did this by, on the colour wheel, when I highlighted the colour, I would push it so it's slightly more towards the blue, and that would make it more bluey tinted. When I filled the colours in on the picture, it looked like I'd taken a blue filter and put it over the top, which is exactly what I wanted, and this allows me to use these as base colours to create my image off. I find that creating tones for these shades can be more easier if you kind of experiment a bit. You can kind of see what shades work as you're working on the piece and what don't. Like I created lots of shades for the skin, but I didn't actually end up using the browner shades. I ended up using the purple shades for the shading, as this looked much more natural. The shades that I've used, as they got lighter, I used less saturated colours, and as they got darker I used more saturated colours, and this made it look much more interesting and much more kind of dynamic and realistic. I never ever use white as a highlight, and I never ever use black as a shadow because this is very cartoony and makes it look very flat. I tend to use different shades for shading and highlights. Like I decided to use a mixture of the very bright yellow at the top there and a very bright blue because I knew that the lighting was going to be blue, so I decided to use a very bright blue, and the shading I used was very dark blue or very dark purple, as this made it look more natural in the lighting situation. And I didn't use too many colours for the bow because I didn't think I'd use many, and that's very true because the bow wasn't really the main focus and I didn't really need to do a lot to that to make it kind of fit and look good. So this is the final colouring product of Bonnie. I still have a few finishing touches that I need to do on him, but pretty much he's finished. I hope you like the final result. I've made it quite a bit darker because I combined it with the value layer that I did and used that to kind of create shadows and highlights, and now it looks a lot more spooky. And I used quite a few of the shades that I picked out. I didn't use very many skin tones, as I said, but I did use some of the pinky tones on the face, like you can see in his cheeks and stuff, to make him look a little more cutesy, as he's supposed to be a kid's toy. I hope you enjoyed seeing how I colour my illustrations. I hope you'll be able to take something from this video and apply it to your own work. Hopefully you've learned a few tips and tricks from what I do, and I hope it was helpful to someone. In further videos I'm going to do how to create colour palettes from scratch, how to use colours and shadows and highlights, and how to use filters and colours to create moods and images. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe to the Creative Community channel, and look out for more videos in the series, and hopefully there'll be more fan art characters appearing in these, so look out for them.